Hi, you guys. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into Carol's Daily Sauce. And I have taken a little break from my homework. I've been doing it all day, but I've taken a little break from it just to share with you all because I kind of feel like that I've kind of like dropped the ball on, Unraveling the Layers, Memoirs of a Wounded Soul, the book that I said that I was going to be reading. So the first thing I'm going to do today is I am going to read a poem, and the name of this poem is You Are Enough. This poem was written by Danielle Alphonse. To the young, to the old, to the middle-aged, you are enough. To the single woman or the married wife, to the divorced and to the widowed, you are enough. To the one without education or the one who completed university with honors, you are enough. To the new mother, to the new single parent, to the one who couldn't conceive, and the one who lost your child, you are enough. To you who aren't where you desire to be in life, and to you who surpass where you thought that you would be, you are enough. To the poor, to the wealthy, you are enough. Write it on your heart. Tuck it in your memory. Speak it in your words. Believe it in your soul. You are enough. You are enough. You are enough. Once again, that's been a beautiful poem called You Are Enough, written by Danielle Alphonse. And as I said before, these are poems and stories written out of the book Unraveling the Layers, Memoirs of a Wounded Soul. And this is layer 1. This is an anthology. So what I'm going to go ahead and do today is I'm going to share one of the stories. What I had decided to do was only share the poems and try to find a short story. The reality is there are no short stories in here. There are none. There are no short stories because these are stories about women who have been wounded and found their way. So this particular writer has written a story called Wounded for a Purpose. This story was written by Leah Freeman. If you desire to purchase this book, you can do so by going on Amazon. I believe that you can purchase this book in Kindle form as well as the actual book itself. I got it on Amazon for $10.99. It is an anthology of women who have overcome and taken the necessary steps to become a better version of themselves. And I've actually turned over the back of the book and read it. But this is a letter. Dear Leah, I was standing in the mirror and I saw you today. As I gazed at your reflection in the mirror, it wasn't the pain in your eyes that moved me. Nah, I was used to that. Today, I saw something new. I saw the bruises on your soul for the first time, and I cried. I cried because I knew that it was time to tell you the truth. It was time to open the box. Everyone comes to a point in their lives when everything becomes clear. It's the moment when God opens your eyes and shows you His fingerprints all over everything. This is mine, signed, A Wounded Soul. Leah's story goes on to say, one day my soul opened up and told me what I had been blind to all along, the blessing that is my life. It was an ordinary day like today. I woke up and went to the bathroom as usual, but this time something different happened when I looked at myself. I had an epiphany. I realized that I had been protecting myself from who I am, and I needed to face me or lose what I had left. I closed my eyes And when I opened them again, I found myself standing in the basement of my psyche, vulnerable, shaking, and feeling exposed in front of the box. I know that sounds crazy. It seemed crazy to me too at first, but it's true. Instinctively, I knew that this wasn't any old box. The box was a spiritual, but a box all the same. This was a box packed full of bleeps of time that I packed so long ago that I forgot what was in it. Well, not quite. I just packed it and put it down here, out of sight, full of memories, emotions, and time I wanted to erase. Now I am here, debating with myself about opening it. Should I? I ask myself. What are you afraid of, Leah? It's just a box. Pull on your big girl panties, dig through the clutter, grab it, and view the contents. Something tells me that there's a treasure in it. Ruffled baby sock in 1972. Well, here it goes. I snatched off the tape so that I wouldn't lose my nerve and saw small packages carefully wrapped in thin tissue, neatly placed in the box as if to protect them. Each packet was dated with a year. Interesting. I grabbed the packet dated 1972. After all, it was my box, and that was the year that I was born. My hands shook a little with anticipation because I didn't know what I would find, but I slowly unwrapped it. A ruffled baby sock. But there was only one. Why? A picture flickered in my mind like a TV with bad reception. Then it burst vividly into view. I saw a younger version of my mom holding the mate to the sock in my hand. Tears were streaming down her cheeks as she mopped her face with a yellow receiving blanket. I could feel her emotions strongly. As a matter of fact, they were so palpable, I could almost reach out and touch them. Lost, detached, incomplete, ripped apart because someone had stolen her baby. She had been robbed. Her loss was reminiscent of the pains our ancestors felt when they were taken from the motherland. Stolen moments, stolen memories, and a stolen bond. Both mother and child were wounded in the same instant by the same man. A flood of images filled my mind, confusing me. Hurried footsteps, a covered mouth, unfamiliar sounds, peculiar smells, confusion, and a great big bus. And then I remembered. One day, my dad had decided that he had had enough with California. He was going back to the place he loved, New York City. And he would be taking me, but not my mother, his wife. Why would he do such a thing? He told her that he was taking me to the park, packed a small bag for me, and walked out of her life, taking the most precious thing that she had had with him. Her baby girl was gone. Long before my mom realized what was happening, he boarded a bus and left the state. Imagine what I could be thinking in my little mind as morning turned into afternoon, afternoon turned into evening, and then bedtime came and went without the comfort of my mother's warm embrace. I wonder sometimes if he could see the confusion in my little eyes as I looked at the faces of strangers searching for her cocoa brown complexion and deep dimples, but none looked familiar. How could his heart bear my tears as I cried myself to sleep day after day until we arrived in an unfamiliar city and I was placed in the arms of my grandmother? As time went on, I grew attached to my grandmother. She comforted me, she loved me, and nurtured my little fractured heart, but it never healed quite right. There was always a piece missing, a small hole that had never been filled. My dad decided in his own selfishness that if he was leaving, he would take that was his. What he didn't know is that he had dealt the first blow in Satan's plan to destroy the faith of a future woman of God in the quest for her soul. He brought me back to California in 4 years. So 4 years later, he brought her back. It was 2 years after he returned and had 2 more daughters with my mom. He didn't want to separate me from my grandmother until time to go to school, he said. He didn't think about how alienated I felt. I felt like an outsider. I loved him with all my heart because he was all I knew, but he made me a stranger in my own home. Slowly, I came back to myself, but there was one feeling that stayed with me. I felt very alone. I looked at the sock for a moment. Then I placed it in my pocket and rubbed its softness with my fingers. Back to the box. Let's see what is next. Maybe the next item in there would comfort me. A cassette tape, 1986. I reached inside and grabbed the next package labeled 1986. Inside was a cassette tape with a piece of paper folded around it. I unwrapped the paper and found a note. I immediately recognized the writing as a lazy scrawl of my first boyfriend. I think you're beautiful. Do you like me? Yes or no, if read. But I was curious about the tape. And what did it have to do with the note? I frantically started searching for a tape player, and then almost as if it was playing by itself, I remember the contents and I understood. I could hear my 14-year-old voice on the tape telling my daddy that I loved and missed him. I was asking him why did he leave his family again to return to New York. Most importantly, why did he leave me? Wasn't I his favorite child? His firstborn? He knew that the relationship between me and my mother was strained. He knew that when he brought me back to California when I was 5, that I felt like an outsider. I told him. I had no recollection of my mother. I had no bond with my sisters. I begged him to return, but I never heard those words. I didn't even have an address to send a tape to. Tears coursed down my cheeks as I remember that day. It was the same day that the note was slipped into my book bag. I was starting to give up on love. He was tall, handsome, and slim, but muscular, with smooth brown skin that lived 5 hours away. He was 3 years older than me, church going, and the nephew of a pastor. This is the best kind, right? A whole lot of young ladies wanted him and fought for his attention, but he wanted me, the quiet bookworm that didn't make friends easily. I still don't know what he saw in me, but for the next few months, he pursued me relentlessly. He sent me notes and showered me with compliments. He wanted me bad, and finally, I gave in. He was a perfect gentleman. He knew I was a virgin, and he never pressured me for sex. He understood me, and he respected my boundaries. We talked for hours, wrote countless letters, and recorded ourselves on cassettes, professing our love for one another. I was in heaven. To him, I was enough for him to stick around, and he didn't want anything from me. All he wanted to do was to marry me one day, but that wasn't so. 3.5 years later, he dropped off the map. No calls, no letters, no visits, no nothing. My aunt lived in his town and broke the news to me a few months later. He had married someone else. He forgot about the nights we spent hating to hang up, so we just slept on the phone. I guess the forever that he promised me was destined to be hers. My heart ached, but big girls don't cry. They get even, right? I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and started back and forth from the note to the tape, striking two in the war from my soul. That was the enemy whispering, love hurts, protect yourself from it. But isn't God love? Wow, this is a deep story, you guys. I'm trying to debate if I'm going to read it, but I'm telling you, it's a long story. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. I'll come back on tomorrow. I normally, as I said, I normally do not, film on Sundays. However, I am going to do this because I have gotten into it, and I want to know where it's going to go. And I will tell you guys that this young lady's story is, ooh, baby, this is, it's almost 100 pages. It's a very, actually, it goes from like 195 clear up to 254. So I'll come back to you guys on tomorrow, Sunday, August the 25th, with the striped skirt. Once again, this has been a story. We are listening to the story written by Leah Freeman, Wounded for a Purpose. And so far, what we've already found out about Leah is that Leah, with her dear self, was separated from her mom, I believe when she was 1 year old, or almost 1 year old. Her father just took her from her mother, took her to New York City, gave her to her grandmother, went back to California with his wife, made 2 babies with her. The mother is a good woman, because had he took my children, I don't know if I'd be able to make any more with him. And left her with her grandmother for some years. He did eventually take her back home to California, but because she was estranged from her mother for so many years, there was no bond. There was no bond with the sisters that had been born when she was away. So what we're going to do, I'm going to come back on Sunday, August the 25th. We're going to read the striped skirt. But go ahead and put in the comments what you really think about this story. I had already posted something on this morning, but I'm actually going to upload this because I really want to share these stories in this book. I honestly believe that there are so many wounded souls out there. And the wounded souls are not only women. There are wounded souls in men, in young men as well, older men as well. However, I am a female, and my desire is to help those with wounded souls that are young girls, that are young women, that are older women, that are women my age. I don't have all the answers, but God does. So go ahead and put in the comments something that you'd like to ask me, something that we maybe can talk about through possibly a live, because I can definitely do lives on my computer. I do want to let you guys know I am very closely approaching the 500 mark. I will be giving a $25 Amazon gift card as well as a makeup bag filled with all kinds of goodies. So please, please, please share out this information. More than anything, I want young ladies, women in general, to know that healing can and will come. You just have to trust God. I actually was looking at YouTube the other day, and there was a gentleman, I don't even know his name, and he was saying that, have you ever heard the voice of God? And he said that we believe in men, we don't believe in God, because the man is a person who told us about God. I'm not even going to play with him. Okay? I'm not even going to play with him. But I want you to know, God is real, you guys. God is really real. I tell you, man didn't heal me. It had to be a greater being. So I'll come back with you guys to share the stories. We will be reading the striped, I think it's the striped skirt by Leah. The striped skirt. And Leah has went from, I believe, from 1972. Striped skirt is in 1989. All right. So you've just heard the story by Leah. I want to make sure I get her last name right. And this has not been her whole story. We are just starting divulging into her story. Leah Freeman, and her poem is Wounded for a Purpose. We're going to continue to read this. Please hit me up in the comments if you have any questions or concerns, anything that I might be able to do to help you within reason. I am here to help. I'm not here to hurt. Trust me, you guys, I'm not here to hurt. I have just read an insert, a story out of Unraveling the Layers, Memoirs of a Wounded Soul. This is layer 1. This is an anthology with a number of books, a number of stories and poems written by survivors. The authors of this book, Jessica Lee Ann and Melissa Sampson. This is the first layer of Unraveling the Layers, Memoirs of a Wounded Soul. There are additional layers, but all of the layers can be purchased on Amazon.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope to hear from each and every one of you. Once again, as I always say, thank you so much to each and every one of my supporters. Thank you to those that don't support me. I love you. I love you all the same. Be blessed, be encouraged, and be strengthened. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.